And welcome to the show. The annual Doug Archie Awards kicked off this week. The Columbus Dispatch reported that Ohio State self-reported 4 minor NCAA violations. So if you're new to this process or new to college football, like most Michigan fans, this is the part of the year when a lot of schools self-report their violations. They take a set in the last 6 months or whatever, and they go to the NCAA and say, hey, we had these violations over this period of time. Here's what we did to take corrective actions in each violation. The NCAA then reviews what those were and what the punishments were, the self-imposed punishment, and says, okay, you did good enough here, not good enough on this one. We're going to add a little bit of punishment on this one over here. That's how it works. Works that way for everybody that complies. So Ohio State reported 4. They were all level 3 violations. Level 3 are considered very minor, not by me or Ohio State, but by the NCAA. Ohio State self-punished themselves on all 4 of those, and the NCAA said on 3 of them, that was sufficient punishment. Number 4, we're going to add a little more here. You guys were not quite enough punishment on this one. Okay, there we go. So the man who's in charge of the Ohio State Compliance Department is Associate Athletic Director Doug Archie, and Doug Archie is a legendary stickler. He runs about the tightest ship of any athletic department in the country, and that's a fact, and it's a well-known fact, and it's such a well-known fact that there is a section of the Ohio State fan base that talks a lot about Doug Archie, particularly around this time of year, and they cannot stand this man. They think he goes way overboard. They think he self-reports things that would never see the light of day, and that's true. But just think about that for a second, that this guy is so good at his job and such a stickler that any of us even know his name. I've known Doug Archie's name for a decade. I think he got hired in, 2010-ish, but I feel like I've known his name forever. And I shouldn't know his name. The guy's name that runs the compliance department, you know he's good. You know he does his job. I mean, I'd put good money that he's probably the most famous compliance department guy in the history of college football. So while many don't like him, I'm fine with it because Ohio State is the biggest profile brand in the country. And these people are tasked with making sure that they don't get hit with any kind of serious penalties, scholarship reductions, suspensions, etc. And they do their best to make sure issues don't become big problems. And if that means we had to take a little shit from everyone now and again because they self-report 4 violations. By the way, I'm going to put on the screen as I'm going over this, all the schools that what they've self-reported this period here, okay? Because this is very normal. And if you've never seen it or you don't pay attention like those folks, right, then you see it and you say, 4 violations. These were nothings, absolutely nothings. And we're going to go over them. So Ohio State committed 4 violations. I interpret 3 of them to be totally honest mistakes, and reasonable folks would agree with me. One of them, I think the person might have knew he was breaking the rule. But 3 of them totally, definitely honest mistakes. So the amount of big voices on the Michigan side of things trying to pretend like this is somehow the level of the Michigan scandal is pretty large. They're pretty loud, and they're a bunch of hypocrites as always, but they're calling us hypocrites. The ignorance and the dishonesty of that fan base is unparalleled in any major sport. Despite being 44 years old, it never stops surprising me, even though I can totally predict what they're going to say before they say it every time, but when I hear it, it still blows my mind. So let's review these violations. This year's list didn't disappoint. I mean, it's usually pretty entertaining stuff. So number 1, booster contact with the recruit before the game. So on the sideline before a game at the shoe, 2 unnamed boosters took a picture with the recruit and shared it on Twitter. Now, the violation here is them asking him for the photograph. They're not allowed to speak to that recruit unless they work for the university. But I think it's important to clarify what the NCAA considers a booster. If you've ever donated $1 to the athletic department or to an NIL collective, you're a booster in the eyes of the NCAA. That's how they would characterize you or I if we were down on the field pre-game, which, by the way, that might make people think these are some big shots, right? It costs $125 on top of your ticket to get a field pass pre-game. It's like 250 during the game. This was pregame. So these aren't some big rich guys just balling, standing on the sidelines with passes. These are two people like you or I who donate to the NIL, so we're considered a booster. And on top of our tickets, we decided that day that we wanted to spend $150 and go down pregame because we knew some recruits would be there, hoping we could take a picture with Jeremiah Smith. Does that sound like something you might do? I might do it, right? So that's what happened here. It's obviously totally an honest mistake. Let's talk about the punishment. Ohio State's punishment for themselves on this was rules education, and one of those two, we'll say me, you got off the hook, but one of those two wasn't allowed to have a pregame sideline pass for the following two games. I'm guessing it's because I was the one who tweeted it, or it could have been because I had passes down to the field for the next two games, and they took them away. You didn't have them, so there was nothing to take away. Seems most likely. So the staff was responsible for the staff that distributes those sideline passes also received education. They did not facilitate this interaction with the player. Important to note, you and I went and did that ourselves when we were down there. So it's obviously against the rules. It's a minor violation. Action was taken. The NCAA did not deem this was sufficient action. They wanted a little more penalty. So on this one, they eliminated 2 in-person recruiting days from the football department. So they got dinged a little harder. I think that's excessive, but whatever. 2 in-person visits were taken away. And you can guarantee one thing, this will never happen again. And that's what I like about it. You knock it one time, self-report, and it'll never happen again. And that's what I like about these. Not, because you don't want them to be able to ding you for anything. I want the cleanest program in the country. And you know what? It's pretty darn close. And when you look at these violations, you can always kind of tell if it mattered or not by asking yourself, what did the program gain or what could the program have gained from this interaction or this action? And the answer is obviously the program gained nothing, and nothing could have been gained from it. So on we go. Number 2, this was a social media violation. So a player tweets that he's committed to Ohio State, a player that was in the transfer portal. We're assuming this was Caleb Downs. The timing kind of lines up. And an Ohio State staffer commented under the tweet, "Great news." Now that's a violation. And that's a violation because a staffer can't comment publicly until the recruit actually signs. Now, I don't know, man. Whatever. We all see what happened here. He obviously didn't know it was against the rules, because if he did, he knew he would be broadcasting whoever was reading that tweet NCAA violation. So an honest mistake. And an honest mistake, did the football program gain anything? No, he was already committed. Okay, moving right along. What did the punishment happen here? So the comment was deleted, and Ohio State provided the staff education related to social media. That was the punishment. The NCAA deemed that punishment acceptable. So there we go. That's number 2. Number 3, improper edit. Now, we all know that when recruits come to visit, there's the photo shoot that goes down. They go through all the uniform combinations. They grab and put on whatever they want, goofy accessories, WWE-style belt. When they're in Alabama, they wear Nick Saban's hat for it, right? It's fun. It's a good time. And the department takes a bunch of photos, gives them the photos or whatever they give them to take the pictures home with them. And this violation was for providing an edit to a commit. Chris Henry Jr., the top wide receiver of the 26 class, he was visiting with Pac-Man Jones, his guardian, and Brian Hartline gave Pac-Man Jones the edit of the photographs that he took. Well, Chris Henry Jr. was still a sophomore. He wasn't a junior yet. And you got to be a junior before the staff is allowed to give you or your parent or guardian some kind of edit. So Hartline reported this to compliance the following day, and the punishment that Ohio State gave Hartline was he was prohibited from sending recruiting materials to prospects for a week, and the rest of the staff was not allowed to supply materials for 2 weeks. The NCAA, they agreed with this punishment. No further punishment was given. Now, this one in particular, I'm even seeing Michigan man say, okay, this one's stupid. I'll admit the NCAA just needs to shut up with this kind of crap, right? And I'm impressed they were able to admit that, but it really shows the level of understanding that they have for the NCAA and how these rules get made. Because you're pretty much telling on yourself that you're clueless when you say something like that. Because we can be sure we know the origin of this type of rule. Now, you may remember there was a story just last offseason or so about a new NCAA rule that schools could not do a photo shoot for recruits unless it was an official visit. You know, a lot of times they go visit, it's not an official visit. Most visits aren't official visits. So a rule like this got a lot of publicity with a lot of folks saying, come on, this is ridiculous. Why is the NCAA punishing these kids? Let them have fun. Let them get these pictures. That's cool. Who wouldn't want them? I'd want it too, right? Well, the NCAA made this rule at the behest of the schools. And the reason the schools were pushing for it is because they were getting tons of guys that would come in on these visits, bring their buddies from high school, which, of course, if I'm Ohio State and you're my recruit, you want to bring your buddies, I want you to have a great time. I want you all to come, have a great time. But what I don't want is to put everybody out by making these edits, which take a lot of time and work for 7 different dudes from your high school. So how do I counteract that? Well, we could say that only the guys on official visits do it. Okay, well, that sounds like a good idea. But what if we have that rule, but at USC, they don't have that rule, and they don't have that rule at Wisconsin? Well, then we just look like jerks, right? Okay, so while we're saying this, the guy at Wisconsin in their department is saying that too, and the guy at SC is saying that too. So I call him, and they call Miami and Florida State. We all say, guys, this is ridiculous. So what happens? We lobby for a rule change so that none of us are allowed to do it. That's how these rules that we see and go, oh, God, the NCAA's idiots. Why would they care about that? That's how these get made. They get made because the schools collectively say, let's all stop doing this together. Well, someone needs to enforce that, don't they? That's what the NCAA is, and that's how the rules get made. And I think that lack of basic understanding of what the NCAA is and how the rules get made is where a lot of this ignorance comes from, and mostly from them. So there you go. And finally, number 4, the number 4 violation. And this one is the most serious in my estimation, but still a level 3 minor violation. So what happened? An assistant coach called a player before he appeared in the transfer portal is the official listing of the violation. However, what really happened was the player posted on Twitter that he was transferring, and then the coach got a hold of him. Now, you cannot contact a player until his name is officially in that portal database, and it was not. Though he tweeted his intention, that's not sufficient. It's got to be in the portal. Now, I'm going to say, if you or I are someone whose business is recruiting, then we know damn well his name needs to be in the portal before we contact him. Like, Twitter doesn't count. If it's our job to recruit, I'm pretty sure we're going to know that, right? So this is a level of a dirty word. This is a level of tampering. We may say he got caught making a call at 8 p.m. and he should have waited till 8 a.m. What's the big deal? I mean, the deal is, the rule is he's got to be in the portal. I don't have a problem with them being sticklers on this one, because where do you cut off the line? You know, well, he tweeted. All right, well, what if he sent an email to some? I heard he sent an email. So I didn't contact him until I heard he sent the email. Nah, name's got to be in the portal. Whoever sent this, or whoever got a hold of him before his name was in the portal, knows better. This one irritates me a little bit, because tampering, while this is a level of tampering, it is a very minor level of tampering. You know, obviously tampering is running rampant in college football. People are contacting schools, players, and trying to coax them into the portal, right? And that's a big deal. It really is. So this specific violation is going to fall under the tampering category. And I don't want the tampering category attached to Ohio State in any way. While we know it's minor because we know the details now, most people aren't going to read the details. They're just going to see that word. And when they see that word, that looks bad. And I don't like looking bad. So that one irritates me a little bit. So what was the punishment? Ohio State self-imposed recruiting activities for a week and then reduced its in-person visits by 3 and official visits by 4. The school provided the rest of the staff with a letter of education on tampering and the newly implemented transfer portal window. The NCAA deemed that punishment acceptable. So that's the biggest punishment, and that's the biggest violation, and that's the end of the story. But we will likely hear about this in Ohio State's tampering for a long time. But there are levels to everything, as I said. Contacting someone when they announce on Twitter that they're transferring and then getting a hold of them before they're in the portal, that's obviously very minor. Getting a hold of somebody and saying, hey fella, we got a need for a left tackle. What do you think? Don't tell anybody we're calling, but you could come here and probably start pretty quick. We might even have some money for you. That is clearly a big deal. So I don't like to be associated with that. And now that tampering is out there, I don't like it. But obviously a minor thing. Don't break the rules and you don't get tampering associated with you. So quite a few told me I have rabbit ears for negative things about the program. And I admit that I do. But it's the rabbit ears that also help me catch interesting stories. So it's kind of a catch-22. Speaking of